As you know, Trump is appointing his cabinet as we speak. This man gets it done. He's not doing to-do lists like Kamala had planned. He's actually doing things. He's actually implementing a plan and building a dream team. Meanwhile, the left is losing it, and we can count on that, unfortunately. Trump's winning, and the left is suffering a narcissistic injury. What they do when they suffer a narcissistic injury is they lash out. They turn on each other. They do blame game. But the biggest thing that they do is defamation of character and a smear campaign. Watch the reaction as the left on MSNBC suffers major narcissistic injury when they hear that RFK Jr. has been appointed in charge of health.
I have to turn to some breaking news, though. Sources tell NBC News that the president-elect, Donald Trump, is expected to pick Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Trump had previously promised RFK a, quote, big role.
And notice how condescending she sounds as she's delivering this. First of all, she stumbles as if she's never even heard of RFK Jr. She calls to President Trump as if we don't know. It's just presumed that maybe he's President-elect Donald Trump. All of this is sort of this standoff nature. And that's how you know that they're suffering from a narcissistic injury and they're about to come in for the kill in trying to defame anybody around Donald Trump. And so, of course, the RFK Jr. pick is going to be majorly defamed in their book.
After RFK abandoned his independent bid for president and endorsed Donald Trump, the New York Times describes him like this, as a, quote, environmental lawyer who has no medical or public health degrees and has promoted anti-vaccine conspiracies for years, end quote.
And I wonder why they quote him to be that way. Listen to how the left paints the picture of anybody that they disagree with. It's always in a negative light.
Regarding the Food and Drug Administration, the agency that is responsible for the safety of our prescriptions, vaccines, cosmetics, our food, even veterinary medicine, an agency that would be under his purview, RFK has said that, quote, entire departments have to go. Let's bring into our breaking news coverage former Obama White House Policy Director, MSNBC medical contributor, Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, your first reaction.
Oh, my God. I mean, those of us who have spent our lifetime, kind of decades working in and around in HHS, I'm not kidding, Nicole, my texts are flying off the chain, both Democrats and Republicans saying this can't be real.
And they always love to plant that, both Democrats and Republicans saying this can't be real. That is not true because millions of people voted for Donald Trump and millions of people knew that RFK Jr. was going to be on his cabinet. And not only that, that's why they were voting for Trump for many people. The fact that they try to paint it out to be, it was such a big surprise and we couldn't believe it. It's just complete lies. We would have a lot more respect for you, Doctor, and MSNBC and everybody, if you would just say, this is an interesting choice. This is what we agree with. This is what we don't. But to try to lump us all in, and that's what people do when they're suffering from a narcissistic injury. They try to say, everybody thinks this way. Everybody agrees with us to defame this person.
Someone must have gotten this wrong. This can't be possible. And now the second underlying chain, there's some silver linings. The second thought
just dumbfounded. Oh, this can't be. It just can't be. That's their go-to. It's just, and that's their way to completely undermine and be condescending. Like, surely you wouldn't do this. Surely. Yes, no, absolutely we're doing this because RFK Jr. has been fighting this fight. He understands that big tobacco owns a lot of the candy companies. He understands that big pharma has been over medicating people. This is a really big problem that everybody should be on board with. But of course, when you have mainstream media and MSDNC painting them out to be the bad guys, that's how people can follow literal toxins. People who you would never think, like the hippiest of people, are like, yes, let's sign up for chemicals and toxins. If they only knew the truth, then they'd vote for Trump. And many people do know the truth, and they did.
I had is, he can't get confirmed, can he? But I'm just listening to you talk about the DNI and all these other roles that require some sort of White House or confirmation or some combination. And here we are. It is really hard to believe. There are career staff texting me saying this was just the push they needed to try to get out. They were already on the fence and worried. We're not just going to see this incredible kind of integration of ideology that has no science behind it.
And that is a lie. There have been so many scientists. The problem is they're censored. They're defamed. They're kicked off of boards. They're fired from their jobs. They're not allowed to share information. And that's exactly what RFK Jr. is going to be exposing. That's what Nicole Shanahan has been talking about this whole time. She's like, when I was a Democrat, I would try to get people to listen to me like, hey, there are all these scientists with this other information. And they were like, no, shut up. And then they defamed them. And we know what happened. Another phraseology that this MSNBC host, Nicole, I think her name is, wanted to completely discredit him by saying, oh, he abandoned the independent ticket. No, he was sued pretty much off the ticket and realized it was going to be more of a hindrance than a help. And so because he cares about the country, like you guys always say, that your catchphrase, have more love for the country than the party. That's exactly what RFK Jr. did. He had more love for the country than his party and decided to join forces with Trump, even though they don't agree on everything. They agree on the main, most important issues that are going to really help in their minds. And so they meet in the middle. That's what you do when you have differing opinions. But when you have a narcissist and you have narcissistic energy and injury, they just defame anybody who doesn't think like them, completely discredit them. That's exactly what's happening here. They have shut up scientists with other information, and they're furious that RFK Jr. is going to expose the truth. The American people deserve the truth. You're smart enough to know the truth and be able to decide for yourself.
But Nicole, we're going to see probably the best of the best career staff leaving these agencies potentially hollow.
Good, because if they don't want transparency and they are trying to lie to the American people, then they should go. We should want transparency in the health system. We should want that. I really, what do you think? I'm a little skeptical, actually a lot skeptical of anybody who is skeptical of him. Made him out to be an anti-vax too. If you even have questions about a vaccine, then that's what you do. If you know somebody who's been injured or a death has been caused by it, you're not even allowed to talk about it. That is dangerous. During the pandemic, I posted about vitamins and I got censored. You weren't even allowed. That should raise a red flag. That's what we're fighting for here, is freedom of speech and freedom of transparency. And that's why they're so upset, because they don't want that. So their go-to is to defame and then, of course, sue, try to get rid of, eliminate in any way that you can. That's what bullies do.
You would oversee.
Just for people that aren't familiar with how HHS interacts with the medical community and people's lives, just take us through a little bit of that, if you will.
Secretary of Health and Human Services, as you mentioned, has a purview over many agencies that touch our lives. You just touched on a couple of them: Food and Drug Administration, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You may kind of know these letters, as we've talked about all vaccines and things during COVID, but it touches everything. Nicole, it touches our food supply chain. I'll give you an example. When we had a supply chain shortage of baby formula, this hits a lot of people at home because none of the shelves could keep the formula stocked. It's the HHS secretary who kind of pulled it all together and worked with other departments to try to make sure that we could get Americans formula just to feed their children. Add into that just all the research. Think of the National Institutes of Health, Nicole, that's also under HHS. Research on drug development. And
see, all of these things will be good, because also, RFK Jr. understands that it comes down to where we produce our food and how we produce them. He understands at the farming level. See, the thing is that they don't want to expose the people that are very against RFK Jr. is that they don't want it exposed that Big Pharma is in cahoots with China, which is owning a lot of our farmland and also making us sick because we have the chemicals, and then we can go back to Big Pharma, and it's a big loop. So if we eliminate that loop, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because we're focused on making people healthy. The people that are focused on making people sick may lose their jobs, but the good people, the good doctors and Big Pharma, there are some good big medicine out there, right? But the ones, the crooks that are over medicating and making people sick deliberately are going to go out of business. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I actually pulled up, just to remind myself, a tweet from RFK Jr. when he was running for president, where he said that if he were president, thank goodness he's not, he'd stop research on drug development and infectious diseases for 8 years. And I think he was proud of that.
Because he's looking at the entire picture, ladies. See, they only want it their one way. And again, when you're suffering from narcissistic injury and you're not allowed to have control, you have to defame and discredit anything. He's saying, let's listen to all the science. Let's look at all the holistic approaches. Let's not just go so quick to medicate. But he's not against medication. He's not against Western medicine. He's not against the vaccine. It's just this overdosing and a one size fits all. See, that's the problem when you give full government control to anything, right? Whether it's your health, your wealth, your transportation, which is essentially, thank God, why Kamala didn't win, because that was her platform. She wanted to control all of it, your transportation, your health, your wealth. And when they can control that and your food supply connected to your health and your wealth and well-being, your family, they've got you. They have full control. But see, this approach that RFK Jr. and Trump have is going to put the control back into the people. It doesn't mean that you could still have some bad stuff for you if you want, but it's full transparency and you're allowed to moderate yourself rather than a doctor, Big Pharma, just over medicating you, the candy companies putting toxins in for the kids, and this whole loop that's created that is really killing Americans.
During COVID, you and I have talked about the Medical Reserve Corps and the Public Health Service Agency, all the people who actually help to facilitate getting vaccines across the country, getting COVID tests across the country. That's under HHS as well. And anything from a safety net clinic to the medicines that you trust are safe, that is now potentially going to be under this environmental lawyer with no training whatsoever.
Oh, I'm so excited because it'll be full transparency. It'll be full transparency for the people. And so this lady here, she's having massive narcissistic injury because I think she might fear she's going to be exposed, along with a lot of other crooked doctors and nurses and people who have been bought out by this sort of rhetoric that's like any other science that shows anything else. Cancel them, fire them, eliminate them. Oh, I'm so excited that we're going into a new era.
And
I have a little one, so I'm on a vaccine schedule again, and I trust my pediatrician with that. RFK has criticized childhood vaccination schedules linked vaccines to autism and other health issues against studies. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky warned in 2022 that vaccine misinformation is one of the biggest threats to children's health. In the sort of pickled community of anti-vax disinformation, there are people that refuse vaccines, and there are outbreaks of polio and measles in this country, diseases that were once thought eradicated. What should people watching do if they have young kids?
I thought it was my body, my choice. Look, again, I'm not anti-vax at all, but I am for full disclosure, and it's not a one size fits all. It's not. It's per case. Some people have reactions to things. Some people don't. I know for a fact I've had a reaction to the flu vaccine. If you watch an interview with JD Vance, he says that he had a reaction to the COVID vaccine. A lot of people have documented reactions, really bad adverse effects to the COVID vaccine and other vaccines. Does it mean that that happens to everybody? No. But to eliminate the information that it does happen to some people, that's criminal.
If there is any solace, it's what you just said, that as doctors, we're trained. So we are trained. I know that we've talked about doctors in many states not being allowed to talk about certain issues. I really hope and pray that vaccines and public health do not become another set of issues in addition to reproductive and women's health. But right now, your pediatricians, your primary care doctors, they have your best interest. They treat you in front of them, and they're not worried about the politics. In fact,
that's not always true either. Some of them are very worried about the politics, and it's become completely politicized. And with all due respect for doctors, I believe in Western medicine. I also believe in holistic natural remedies for certain things. And I do believe that it's an individualized basis. I'm a melanoma survivor. And when I went in to have my mole checked, my doctor, who's the expert, who went to medical school, advised me not to have it removed. And I said, for my better judgment, my instinct said I need to get it removed. She said that she was the expert. Insurance wouldn't cover it because she did not think it was cancerous. Long story short, I said, I'll pay out of pocket. She removed it. The next day it was filled with melanoma. I was raced to John Wayne Cancer Center in Santa Monica, California, where I lived at the time. And thank God was able to start remedying it. I could have lost my life if I had just trusted the doctor, who clearly has more medical experience than I do. But sometimes your heart, your instincts are more valuable than anything. And if you believe in God, that guidance is more valuable than any PhD any doctor could ever have. This is something really important to remember. And when you have all government control, they try to eliminate your natural ability to trust your own instincts. So this is why they're spinning out, because they want that full control. Let me know what you think, because I think that RFK Jr. is a wonderful pick. I think he's a sound person. We all have flaws. We have to go with what is the best policy for the overall common good. And I think this is going to bring about a lot of good. This is going to eradicate a lot of disease. And this is going to also expose a lot of the corruption, which I know has been really, really scaring them. If you want to watch more on his other cabinet picks, Tulsi Gabbard, another amazing pick, please watch this video. And if you found value in this video, please do subscribe.